that we use the window tool to do all our, what we call exterior joinery. And we use the term exterior joinery because we don't differentiate between a window and a door on the outside of our building. Okay, so we use a window tool to do both windows and doors on the outside of a building. Okay, so it's no different. We use a window tool. And for our internal doors, we use the door tool. Yep. The only odd one is under the door tool, there's also one called a garage door. And there's a specific tool for a garage door, and it has a separate tool. And the reason, part of the reason, or one of the main reasons for doing all your exterior joinery with the window tool is when you come to do a schedule, which schedules every single one of those windows or doors, because it comes from the window tool, it creates a schedule out of the window tool very nicely. It are all there, yeah? So we can do every door using the window tool. You need to get that in your head, not the door tool. Okay, only for internal doors, and we'll have a look at that one as well quickly. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, so window tool is what we need to learn to use. Okay, so it's very easy in terms of doing simple windows. So if we have a look at our window tool, so as you know, some of you maybe, that if you drag that out slightly, it gives you the names of all the, if you drag that out, you get the names as well. If you're like me, you go, oh, what does the window tool look like? You've got a name as well. So if you click on your tool and either double click there, or for me, I double click that. That's just my standard thing. I like to always just go up and double click the icon. And part of the reason I like to do that is, if I just escape that from the set. Part of the reason I like to do that is often that I can then have a look at its default things. That's not on the windows. So see all these ones? All these ones? No, don't use them. Don't use them. We don't use any of these. So we don't use all these standard made ones up. And part of the reason is you can, but they're very difficult if you want to modify them. They're really set up just for specific cases. But Archicad, because you guys got CI tools, we can basically make any window and door using the CI tool. That is all we need. The CI tool window maker. Yep, does that make sense? Okay, so forget about all those other ones, all these no. We can make individual specific windows and doors using that tool for the outside, anywhere on the outside of our building. Yep. So there's some things there that are fairly obvious. If you have a look up in here, it tells you how wide you want to make the window. So you can make it whatever size you want. So let's just go 1800 for the sake of it. So that's the width of the window. Now, the other thing you need to know is the size of the window is not the size of the window. It is the size of the opening in the wall that is made by the timber. Okay? That is what it is. So when you put in a window in plan, it will have a measurement of 1800 and it will take it from the outside of the window frame to the outside of the window frame. Perfect. Because the window manufacturer knows this. It knows that when we say an 18 wide window by a meter high window, then they know as a window manufacturer that is the opening that their window is going into. And you know why? Because if you have a look at a window profile, the side or the head or the jamb, it is convoluted. There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of a profile. It's a piece of aluminium that goes, where on there are you putting a dimension? You can't, because different manufacturers have different profiles. So it doesn't work. We're not dimensioning the window. But the window people know that. They know it's going in there. Because guess what? Their window goes into that opening and it laps over the outside of the cladding. So you can't dimension the window. Does that make sense? So you need to understand that principle. Okay? So the next one is you've got lots of options of deciding where the top of the window is. The header, they call it in this, the header, or the head, the window head. Okay, so you know the terminology, head, sill, jambs. Head, sill, jambs. Yep. So Archicad comes from Hungary. That's where it's made, Archicad. So some of their things are slightly odd, like the word story that they use for their stories, S-T-O-R-Y, which is not how you spell story, but in Hungary it obviously is. It has an E-Y for housing. It's not telling a story, but it doesn't matter. So for me, what I use for me, and you don't have to, but I always use this one called sill to wall base. So, and I want to know what is the height from the sill to the floor. Okay? And that's why I set it up that way. Because then I sometimes have to do a bit of math. So in a New Zealand standard house, we have 2.4 high ceilings. So I walk into a house, I do that, and if I touch the ceiling like that, it's 2.4. I know that, I've been in a million of them. So our standard head height in a standard New Zealand house is 2 meters. That is just standard. You don't have to have it as 2 meters, but that is a standard we use. Now, this one you're looking at, I think is 2.2 they use as the head height. Yeah, if you have a look at the little examples you're doing, I think everything works out to be 2.2. But for me, typically, and so I do a lot of addition alteration work, so when I measure a house, I measure floor to sill, and I measure from my sill to the top of the window, so I know my window height, and I know my floor to sill. So in here, I can make up those things. So a typical bedroom, for example, often has a sill of around about 800. When I say around about, this is very common. So if I have a sill height of about 800, and I've got a standard 2 meter high top, how big's my window? 1.2, 1200, yeah? So if I put in there, for this situation here, there is my standard setup. I've got an 1800 wide, I've got a 1200 window, and its sill is 1800 above the floor. Okay, so when I do doors or windows that go down to the floor, what's this figure here going to be? 0. They go down to the floor. And how high is that door going to be? 2 meters. Okay, because if I'm going to have everything, it's pretty normal that most houses you'll find the tops of windows and doors are all going to match. Yeah, mostly you want everything to be the same level at the top. Okay, so that changes a bit if you're going to end up using 2.2 as your head height. It could change, and you change accordingly. Does that make sense? So that's a very simple thing that you know you can set out, and it's generally the first thing you do. You say, how big do you want the starting point to be? Yeah? Okay, so that's our starting point. Now, if you have a look at your CI tools, so if I click on that CI tools box, I can have a look and click on this particular one here. And these are all the things I can, where is it? All the things I can do with that window. There's a ton of stuff I can do. Most of it I never have to touch. Most of it I'm not worried about. Mostly it's a fairly basic principle. So you don't have to get silly about a whole lot of this stuff. You go, Richard, a lot of it is default settings set up for you, ready to go. You don't have to touch. Archicad's good like that. A lot of it is default. You don't have to touch. You don't have to go in and change line weights and colours and all these things. You go, cool, I'm working on that. So the main one we start out with is the glazing panel layout. The glazing panel layout has a picture of looking straight into your window or door. Yeah? And if it is highlighted in blue, then the changes you make here will change it. Okay, so if I just go up to my, what am I doing? preview and positioning. So that's the basic one that you saw started, and just change that. It also gives an elevation of the window. So as I do those changes in the other part, that will change. So as I add bits in and everything, that elevation will change. But basically I'm working in my CI tool settings in here, and you can see, like if I click on there, I can highlight it. If I click away, it's deselected. Yeah, so that's just me clicking on it. So when it's clicked in blue, I can do things. So for example, if I click that plus button, I've now split that window in two. If I click that plus button, because they're both highlighted, it splits into 4, okay? Simple. But if I push the minus, because all 4 are selected, it's just gone back to my full one. So here's an interesting little one. This is something they changed a couple of versions back, and you go, I want 3. Yeah, hold it. If I click plus again, I'll get 4. I want 3. So if I deselect one of them and push plus, I get 3, because I've split the one that was highlighted. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, because that caught me the first time. I went, how do I get 3? When they change things. They love changing things. Okay. So let's leave it at 3 for the moment. Yep. Let's do 3. So that is just 3. This whole thing you'll see up here says fixed pane. So all that means is you have a frame with glass in it. That's all it is. So it's fixed glass in a piece of aluminium. Fixed frame. Simple. Nothing's opening, closing, moving, sliding, anything. It's just a fixed frame. That is just their standard starting point for a window or a door. Does that make sense? So let's just say that that's how our window wants to look. Give us some ideas. What do you want to do with that window? What should we do? Should we have some things that open? Okay. So let's just say we want to keep the middle one fixed and have these two as openings, or sashes they're called, the opening parts, sashes. And let's have them as what's called awning sashes, where they're hinged basically up the top and near the end, and they open like that. So they're cool because you can have them opening during the day, and it rains, water doesn't get in. So it's a very common way of doing window design in New Zealand, because you can go out and do it. So if I want those ones to be opening, then I have to deselect the one that I don't want to change. Does that make sense? So you can see with the ones in blue now highlighted, I can change that simply by going to here and picking awning. So if I click on that, I get all these different options of what I can do with that window. So if I click awning, you can see the little picture now shows it as an awning sash. And if I go back to my preview and positioning, you can see that's what it'll look like in elevation on my building. And those little dotted lines point in New Zealand to where the hinge side is. If you're in America, they do the opposite. They show their hinges with the V going to the hinges. Go figure. Anyway, so in New Zealand, that's our typical one there, and that's what Archicad is showing you. So that's pretty easy, isn't it? Pretty straightforward. And then we've got other possibilities. So for example, if we want to have on this side 3 of those, 3 opening sashes, and you've probably come across, if you've done this exercise already, there are ways of doing these things. So if I go to my CI tools and we just want to select only the one we're going to work on, it has the ability to make this into multiple panes. And I don't know why it's not showing on that. This must be, I think it's not new. But if you go and have a look in your preview and positioning one, you'll see that it's now automatically divided into 3. Yep. And I just want to tell you that there's one thing that gets a bit tricky, is there is a different way to do it. This is a little bit dumb in this regard, is it won't let me say now, actually, what I'll try it, is say I want that fixed with those 2 opening. I don't think it allows me to do that under that way of dividing it up. I don't want to get into too deep in there. Where am I? CI tools. See, it's not giving me it hasn't opened it up. So there's a different way of doing it if I need to have different things opening, because that was it's just a bit of a dumb thing. It's just saying, I just want so many of those. So I can pick as many or few as I want under that same one. If I go back to there, where am I? See our tools. So yeah, I could, for example, I could make it just 2. And it doesn't show on there, but it shows on there as 2. Okay. So yeah, you've got lots of options. It's also on that same little piece of stuff that we're looking at, you can also divide things up horizontally. So that one there, whoops, if we pick that one instead and divide that into 2, and have a look at our preview and positioning, we've now divided it horizontally into 2. Yeah. So it's got lots and lots of ways of splitting, changing, moving, things like that. So is that reasonably straightforward in terms of a basic window? Any questions on any other ones that, so if we go back and just get rid of, just go back to 1. Okay, so it should now be back to awnings and stuff like that. Should have changed that to, oh, I didn't have that highlighted, sorry. I have to have that highlighted to go back to 1. Yep, so the other thing is you might say, well, I want these, let's just, if we're just going to make it, we'll just make it a bit bigger, let's make it 2400. So quite a common module is using 600 as a width for an opening type of sash. So we go 2400 and we have a look at our picture again, and you'll see that it's now just a wider window. But what we want is these 2 outside opening ones just to be 600 and the rest to be just glass. Does that make sense? So 2 smaller opening ones, because you can only go so big with opening sashes before they start to not be very good. So you've got to be a little bit careful. So if we highlight the 2 here and say, actually we want to, instead of just split into 3 evenly, we want to say these ones are a certain specific width of 600, and you'll see it's now changed. If we have a look at our other one, we've now said those 2 outside ones are 600, and whatever's left over, which happens to be about 1200, see it's 2400 wide, has become a fixed piece of glass. Yeah? So you're not just stuck with things, you can adjust and tell it what you want specifically. Yeah? Does that make sense? So you can do all kinds of things with windows, you know, in terms of how they're opening, everything like that. Sure, you have a look at a door, because doors are the slightly trickier ones. Yeah, any questions on windows?
How do you position it on that outside?
Thank you, okay. See that little thing there? It's telling you that when you go to put it onto a plan, it will hold it in the middle of that window. Okay? Or you can hold it on the left-hand corner, or you can hold it on the right-hand corner. So let's just try that on our plan. So we're happy with all of that at the moment. We go, okay. We're back to our plan. I'll zoom in a bit. And so, what we always do, always, is to insert anything on the outside of the building, we click on the outside of the wall. Because if you click on the inside of the wall and insert it, it will be inside out. It'll be back to front. Okay? So we always insert it on the outside. Even if it's a door, always on the outside of that line. Yeah? So I'll zoom in to make sure you can see nicely. And then when I click the first time, it comes up with this little icon. And what it's saying to you is which way round you want to insert it, in terms of the fact that it might be a non-symmetrical window. So in this case here, it's exactly symmetrical, isn't it? That's the same size as that, so it doesn't matter which way round I insert it. Does that make sense? So that little thing's just saying to me, if I click here, it will insert it one way. If I click on this side of the middle of the door, it will insert it the other way, but you won't see any difference because it's exactly the same window. Does that make sense? So I'm just going to click there, and it has now put that window into the wall. I just clicked, on the outside, on one side of the rather, and it has put it in. And you go, oh, I don't want a lollipop. Okay, so what it is there is a setting in your thing that is saying, under here, that is O3 building plan with markers. That is called a marker. So next semester, next part of the semester, when we get to working drawings, we are going to change from O3 to O4. No, from O4 to O3, because we want to see the markers. And we'll show you how to do all these, and everyone will have a specific number to do with that. So it'll say EJ01 for the external joinery number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way around your building. Yeah? So they get a number, and they have a size, which is 24 wide, 1200, still 800. So there's stuff there. There's some of that we turn off because we have a schedule that tells us all this. So typically we'll end up with a circle here saying EJ01. That's all we need, because they can go to a schedule and go, oh, it's this way, this big on the schedule. Yeah? So we'll get there. So when we do our design stuff, we actually work in O4 building plans, no markers. And if I click on that, no markers. So for design drawings, we don't want markers. We don't want lollipops all over our blooming building for the client to see, do we? We want to see just a window or a door. Yeah? Happy with that? We'll show, we haven't got to how to settle that up yet, but just so you have an idea. Okay, so that was the insertion outside the wall. The next click is which way do you want it to sit. Yeah? So give me an idea, what kind of door do you want? Slider, bifold, French door? We can do all of that with this tool. Let's do a slider, shall we?
Yep.
Is that what you said, or did you say bifold? I don't want to take all your time up, but hopefully this is helpful. So let's do a standard Kiwi slider, 2400 wide, 2 meters high. One panel is glass fixed, the other is a door that slides and sits in front, generally on the outside of the fixed panel. Make sense? That is a standard slider. Okay. So the trick here is it's slightly different. So if we now open up our window tool again, what you'll see is the last window you drew. Yeah? So we have to do a little bit of modification there just to go back to a basic setup. So if I just, while those are highlighted, click, get rid of it all, make sure nothing's there. There's some tricks to that I'll have to tell you about as well, but at the moment it's fine. So here we go. The first thing we need to do is go to preview positioning. How wide? 2.4, perfect. 1200 high, no, how high do we want it? 2 meters. What is our silver wall base? 0. Guys, you guys are good. So yeah, that's all good, ready to go. So the first question is in here is how many parts are there in a sliding door? Thank you, great. So there's 2. One's going to be fixed and one's a door. So we need something up the middle, don't we? We need to split it in 2. So we go plus. Done. So we're ready to go. So one of those we don't have to touch because it's a fixed piece of glass. One of them we want to turn into a sliding door. Yeah? Pretty good, eh? Pretty straightforward. So here's where you have to know some things. Okay, so let's just pick one that we're going to leave as fixed. Let's leave that one as fixed. So we want to deselect that and have this one ready to make into a sliding door. Yeah? So if we go up here to fix pane, you could scroll down here and find there is a sliding door probably somewhere in here. But no. We pick door. We pick door. Okay? So we're not going to pick one of those things that says bifold, or even when we're going to do the bifold, or no, we go down to door. Okay? So at the moment that door is just whatever the default door happens to be, which is just a swinging door, which we don't want. We want it, and I know that because if I go back to my preview and positioning and have a look at that in plan, that's what's shown at the moment as a swinging door. We go, well, Richard, no, that's not what we want, a sliding door. So what we now do, so this is the same for bifolds, French door, whatever, is we now go up into this panel again, click on it, and open up the one that says doors. Okay? And this is where we can now pick an option of what kind of door do we want. And one of them happens to be surface slider. Okay, that's what it is, surface slider, sliding on the surface of the door. Yeah, happy with that? So you can see I could pick bifold. I can do swing doors. So if I want a pair of French doors, I would just have single swing doors. Yeah, you with me? Okay, so we don't pick out of those other ones. We go to the door tool and then we go to doors and pick what kind of door we want to put in. Yeah? Okay, so let's click on there and find, oh, I was already in there, find our surface slider. By default, it already is set up to be on the outside. We can change that and we can change various things. But what we've got to be careful of is when we change that door, is which way is it sliding. Now you'll see that when we had a swing door, it was hinged to the left. So it probably is, if we have a look at our positioning, you'll probably see it is already sliding the right way. So that's cool. If it was sliding the wrong way, if it was appearing to slide away from the other door, and that's just how we had set it up, you can change that the door was on here as a 1, not here. Okay, so if I change which side it was, if we have a look at our preview, you see it's now sliding the wrong way. Same door, but sliding the wrong way. So you can always change, and if you go, oh, I've got it sliding the wrong way, you can just in your settings there, go where it says number of leaves, it's just changed from the left to the right. So I'll go back to that being 1 and that being 0, so we know it's sliding the right way. Okay, so we've now got that door as a slider, and then we go into here again and we go door leaf type. Okay, so here's the one we're working on, and the door leaf type wants to be a frame with glass in it. Okay, so there's the option. 1A is a framed door with glass in it, but at the moment is a solid panel. So just below it, you can click on here and pick glass. Okay, so you now have a framed sliding door with glass in it. Happy with that? So we click on there, and hopefully we now, when we have a look at our, go back to our preview and positioning, it won't look any different in plan obviously, but in elevation, guess what? We now have a fixed piece of glass and a door with glass in a frame that slides. There is a sliding door, half and half. Yep.
The other panel, do you need to do the same to make it, because at the moment it'd be solid, wouldn't it?
No, because by default, when you just got a frame, it's a piece of glass in the frame. So all we did, so we haven't changed that, that's always just glass. It's just because we've now picked that as a door, it's wanting to know, what do you want to do? So ArchiCAD always works on, what do you want to do? It's always asking you questions and you picking what you want. And that's how it should be. You're the designer, you want to tell it what you want. It doesn't know, but it has some default things like saying a frame with glass as a starting point. Yep. So here's where it is important which way you insert it. Okay? So if we go, yeah, happy with that, love all that, size right, everything's good, okay. And then we want to put it into a wall, let's put it into along this piece of wall. So when we click on the outside here and get our thing, you can see if I move my cursor, it's saying, which way do you want it to slide? Okay? So it's very important that you get your second click in the right place. Does that make sense? So you can see it's, you know, so it didn't matter which way I drew it, because I can insert it either way. So I could have picked the other side as being the fixed and that one being the slider. done the opposite. Doesn't matter because it's when I insert it, it's saying, which way do you want to go? I go, yeah, I want to go that way. Cool. I've done it, I've inserted that door in that space.
So if, say you decide, yeah, that's the way I want it, and then later on the project changes slightly, you go, actually I want it the other way, is
Yep.
it easy to
Okay, so if you've got something like that does have a direction. See, it's got a pink dot in the middle there when I've highlighted it. If I click on that pink dot and go to my mirror tool and select mirror, and because that's the middle of the door, and click on that pink dot again, just click on it again, so I've mirrored it. Just like that. So I don't have to do anything else. Yeah. I have a feeling, depends what it is a little bit, they also scroll on here. It also does have a flip option to do with Windows, but that tends to be the best way, just simply to mirror it and go, oh yeah, that's better, prefer that. Yeah, does that make sense? So if we just have a look at what we've done in 3D, show selection in 3D. There is that first window we put in there, and there is our sliding door. So there's a whole lot of other stuff we can do to these things. So under this settings, I'm not going to go into it, but we'll play around with this as we go. If you click in here, there's things to do with all your surfaces. Okay, so at the moment the glass is clear, standard glass, but you might say, oh, I want all my doors to be, I don't know, let's go wild. That frame to be the same. So we now have coloured door. Okay, so you can play around with colours. You can play around with frames. So there's a million settings in here you can play around with, but a lot of it is fairly much standard. So before I leave you, just to show you, let's just quickly do the same thing as a bifold, just to go through that process again. So if we open up our preview setting, let's just make it a little bit. So a typical door leaf for a bifold door, you don't really want to get any bigger than an 810 leaf. So let's just make it 800, just for the sake of it. So 4 of them are what? 4 8s are 32. Okay, so let's make it 32 wide. How high is it going to be? 2 meters? Where's the sill? 0? Cool, all good, done. Okay, so we got the size. Size is fine. So we go back into here, go back up to our, scroll to our glazing panel setup, and we're going to go minus. We're going to try to get rid of some of this stuff we just want to get back. So how many frames do we need for 4 bifold doors? How many frames? 4.
One.
Okay, so it's 1 frame with 4 doors in it. Okay, so that's quite a common thing that you guys set up. Split it into 4 and then put a door in each. But then when you open a door, you've got a frame there. Okay, so when you open bifold doors, there's no frame, is there? It's just an opening. Okay, so there's your starting point. We're ready to go. What's the first thing we're going to pick? Great. Okay, so we're going to go down to our door, and then we're going to go into our settings again and go doors. And under doors, there is one called bifold. Okay, so we pick the bifold option. How many on the left? 2. How many on the right? 2. Okay. So you could have all 4 on one side. So the whole lot open one way. Yeah, so you can pick. You can have 3 and 1 even. So sometimes people do 3, but the 1 can be used as a normal door to go in and out without opening everything. So some people do a 3 and a 1. So that is usable as well. So you've got lots and lots of options for that way, or for that, it doesn't matter. Yep. So there's our starting point. We've created 2 each way. So if we have a look in the plan view, you can see we've got two each way that are fully stacked. And we'll have a little look at that. Because in plan, I do not like it looking like that. I like it a little bit open so I can tell that they are bifold doors. Okay? And I can do that, we go back to our settings again. One of the options, there's lots and lots of options, but one of the things we can find down here is under display options. At the moment, they're set up and planned to be 90 degrees. So for me, I just use 85, that's just my default width. Opening, 85. So I've got to do both sides because there's both sides. Go back to my preview and positioning. Yep, nice. Looks like bifolds, doesn't it? Well, some people put them like this. I don't like that. I just like them, I can see. But that's up to you. Up to you. Okay, so that's good. But the other thing we haven't checked is what are the doors actually like in terms of our, so I've done the doors, but if we go to our door leaf type, just checking, see again, it's just a solid panel at the moment. So again, we have to pick our 1A and we have to pick glass. Yep, now, little trick there is it says left-hand side. So if I click on there and go right-hand side, oh, no, that's good, it has picked up. Sometimes it just, you have to do both. Sometimes it doesn't do the whole lot for you at once. Well, that looks cool. Okay, so that looks like we're ready to go. So if we go plan, go back to our plan and put our bifold door in here on the outside. Does it matter which side I click? No, because it's symmetrical, isn't it? So it doesn't matter which side I click. And there is your bifold doors with glass in it and in 3D, showing 3D. Here's our door. And there are options that allow you to have them open in 3D. So you can have them shown open and you can tell them how much. Same with the sliding door, you can have the door open in 3D. Doesn't have to be everything closed up. You can have your windows open in 3D. Have the little sash windows if you want to have them open. There are settings in there. Yeah?
If you want them to move that door,
Yep.
that would be like a meter from the wall, how do you do that?
Yep. Okay, so back to, if we go back to our plan, and so what often happens if I just suck up this wall, chuck in another, don't be under rectangle, just single door, shut through there. So some of the reasons I like to use that center, putting in this from the center, is that often you put windows and doors in the center of rooms. So hopefully, we got everything turned on. Let's have a look what's here. Oh, it's not that one. So halfway between nodes or between intersect points, if I change that to that, it should give me halfway. Okay? So there's, see the little mark there? That is halfway. So I know if I click on there to insert, oh, I'm still on the wall, sorry. If we pick, say, our bifold door, no, let's do a window, do the window. I'll just soak up the window. So I know that the beauty of that is because I'm using my center one and I can find that center, come on, don't get silly on me. So I know that by having center, using the center, that's why I use the center, is I can click on there and I know I'll put it into the center of that room. Yep. Now your question is, I want it to be a meter off the sidewall. So if I highlight that, grab hold of a node, move on my pet palette, drag, which is mean I'm moving the entire object. So for me, all I do is I go up here, click it to the corner, start dragging that way, type in 1 meter, and I've moved it a meter. Okay, so it's a matter of highlighting and moving the object is my shortcut way of doing it. Mel's got some other ways with his X, Ys and things. I get lost in those, so I tend to just use that.
A corner where you just chuck it up and just set it from the corner, X 100, set it from the first node,
Yeah.
gets it there, and then just
Yeah.
get it set it up to the door, and put it over.
So you can do it either way. You can either use it, tell it what X is, or just start moving it, and it just says, how far, how far?